Toby and the other organizers of Amherst Citizens Against Rosie's, for the invitation to join you here tonight. The struggle in Amherst County is a conflict between love and greed. That's what it's about. This is about love and greed. And the focus of my talk tonight will explain why a vote yes for a Rosie's Casino in Amherst County is an act of greed, and why a vote no is an act of love. But before I share some truths with you about how a local casino like Rosie's is going to affect the people in this region, I want to start with a few questions to you all that reveal the kind of citizens who get involved in a fight like this. So people of faith are certainly an active part of our base, but there are many non-believers as well who are also involved with this fight on our side. We attract members from both the political right and the political left, which is uncommon in our society today. There's very few issues where people will come together on. But this is one where you have people from opposing political sides will come together to work. And there's a common thread that binds all of the people that get involved with this fight. And so I'm going to share 4 questions to you and ask you these questions and it kind of as a way that reveal the kind of citizens who get involved. And the first is, are you someone that when you see a wrong, do you act to make it right, no matter the power of your opponent? Are you someone who is passionate about protecting the kids in your community from suffering abuse, neglect, and poverty? Are you that person? Are you the uncommon person who goes after the root of an evil rather than merely hacking at its branches? And the last question I have for you is do you believe in your core that people are worth more than money? So if you answered yes to these questions, then you are in the right place tonight. If you're watching this at home on Facebook streaming, or if you're going to watch this on a YouTube video down the road, if you answered yes to those questions, you belong in this fight no matter where you live, no matter where you're at. This is your fight. And you belong as a member, not just in this local fight, but as a member of Stop Predatory Gambling. Because we at Stop Predatory Gambling, we believe that people are worth more than money. We're a national social reform network of individuals and partner groups with members of more than 1 million citizens of all political stripes. And we're a 501c3 who's based in Washington, D.C., and I think it's important to note that we do not accept any contributions from commercialized gambling interests. Okay? So we don't take money from commercialized gambling interests. So there's huge money on the other side, but the money we raise comes from individuals and organizations who understand the significance of this issue, and they come from all parts of the spectrum. And so I just like to briefly share, my story is probably like many in this community. Right? I never thought about the issue of commercialized gambling or casinos in my region, or even the lottery and those types of things. I grew up in Massachusetts, and in the state lottery, for example, it was like the paint on that wall. I never questioned it. It was just there. And I never done any research on this issue prior to that, but back in the early 2000s, I worked as a chief of staff in the Massachusetts State Senate for a woman who opposed casinos coming in my own state of Massachusetts. And it was one of these issues where the more I learned about it, it's like, do people really understand what this business is all about? Why are we bringing this in? It's what they say about it publicly is so different than what the reality is, what this business is all about. And so the more I learned, the more I got hooked. And to me, but the moment in my life that really changed the arc of my life was in 2004, the New York Times Magazine did a cover story on electronic gambling machines, slot machines, the kind of machines that are being proposed here in your town, in your region of Amherst County. And as part of the story, the New York Times reporter, he went out to IGT, which is headquartered in Las Vegas, and IGT is the main manufacturer of slot machines in the United States and really in the world. And as part of his story, he went up to each of these slot machine makers and he asked them, do you gamble with these machines that you make? And he went up to each person and each one of them said, no, I don't gamble. But the kicker is he went up to one final slot machine maker and he asked him, do you play the slots? And this was his response, the slot machine designer's response to a national paper, reporter from a national paper. He goes, slots are for losers. Slots are for losers. That's the guy that makes the product. That's what they think of their customers. And so when I read that story, like this isn't just like some bank, doing something, ripping off some of their customers or whatever. Like this is a government program. Like state-sanctioned gambling, these slot machines, this is an extension of a government program. So these losers that they're bringing in these machines, like if you're a legislator or a public official, like these are your constituents. If you're a citizen, like these are your neighbors. These are your family members, your coworkers. So you can't think of another business in America that is such a disdain for who their customers are. So when I saw that changed the arc of my life. And I, over time, ended up leaving. I had a great job. My kids were small. My kids were 4 and 1 at the time. And I left and I joined an existing movement that was once called the National Coalition Against Legalized Gambling, founded by people just like the people in this room, everyday citizens. And they got a movement going, and we got involved. We kind of reframed the argument as stop predatory gambling. And so I've dedicated the rest of my life to this. I'm in this the bitter end. I'm living my life like I'm going 15 rounds in this fight, because this is one of the defining issues in our country today. What's happening here in the Lynchburg area is happening across the United States, in towns across this country. This has been our answer. This is how we're going to rebuild our country, is on casinos, okay, and online gambling and all these other predatory forms for government to make money. And it's Republican and Democrat pushing this stuff, just to be clear. When I say government, it's both sides. It's the establishment on both sides of the aisle doing this. And so I hope when I'm done tonight, in your heart, I hope you'll understand why I'm so passionate about this. And I hope some of my passion will be in you, and that you will take this out into the streets here locally going forward. Because the fight here in Amherst County, at this moment, is whether that you will allow your local and state government to erect a monument to greed in this community. And it's coming in the form of a Rosie's Casino. So there are several truths why a vote yes for a Rosie's Casino is an act of greed. But tonight I'm just going to focus on 3 of those truths. And the first truth is, and I think this is an essential part to understanding this business. So the first truth is, casinos like Rosie's are a form of consumer financial fraud that causes life-changing financial losses for countless citizens. Casino operators, these guys come in and they talk like, we're just like Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or McDonald's or anybody else. And nothing could be further from the truth. What separates commercialized gambling like Rosie's Casinos from every other business, including other vices like tobacco and alcohol, is that casinos are a big con game. Okay, they're a form of financial fraud. It's similar to price gouging and false advertising. So citizens are conned into thinking that they can collect money in a scheme that's designed to ultimately get them fleeced. So think about it. If you go out and pay for a piece of pizza, you buy yourself a ticket to a sporting event or a movie, you buy a glass of wine or a sweet tea, that's what you receive in return. When you put your money down in commercialized gambling, what you receive, okay, is the lure that you might win money. okay? You might win some money. It's a financial exchange. Okay, that's what it is. At the heart of it, commercialized gambling is a financial exchange. But this exchange is mathematically stacked against you. So it's inevitable that you're going to lose your money, especially if you keep doing it. All right, so it's a form of financial fraud. That's why historically it's been illegal to do this, okay, as a business. It's not illegal if you have a Friday night poker game or a Super Bowl office pool, whatever. When you run commercialized gambling as a business, historically it's been illegal because it's a form of financial fraud. So meanwhile, as people are participating in this fraud, like the gambling operators, like they do everything they can to make you feel good as you lose that money. You know, like they call you at home, hey, Susie, we haven't seen you in a while. They'll mail you free gambling play, you know, free gambling wagers to come down, maybe some free dinner, free drinks. Like, that's how it works. They make you feel like your best friend. You're coming off a divorce, you lose your job, you lost a spouse, you know, some kind of major life event. Like, you're down, you're feeling down. Like, these guys act like they're your best friend, okay? And you're looking for an escape, and these guys feel that. And they will exploit you for all you're worth. And they do it in partnership with your county and state government, if you let it happen. So the analogy I like to use to really sink home how this business is different is, let's contrast Rosie's with any other business that sells a product or service, okay? And so the business I like to use is, let's use a blanket selling business, a business that sells blankets, all right? So if you go out to buy a blanket for you or your family, you know, other people don't have to give up their blanket in order for you to leave the store with a blanket. Everyone can go home with a blanket. You go, you have enough money to buy the blanket, you go home. But imagine a blanket selling business that operated like a Rosie's casino. So in order for a very few people to get some blankets, everybody else has to lose their blankets. You have to forfeit your blankets. You have to lose them, you know, and you go without. And many of these people who lose these blankets, they not only lose them, but they end up in major financial debt in the process of giving up their blanket, and they owe money for the blankets that they lost, okay? So the primary winner in a blanket selling business that if you operate like a Rosie's, it's the people who win this are the people that operate the blanket selling business. It's a redistribution scheme. It's an exchange where over a period of time, the people that sell the blankets, like, they end up with all the blankets, you know, or at least most of them. And for those of you, you know, who say, you know, I never buy a blanket, you know, I'm never going to buy a blanket, so, you know, it doesn't really affect me. Yes, it does. Like, number one, you end up with a lower standard of living from all this, because that whole exchange, it doesn't improve your economy at all. It lowers your standard of living. But who do you think pays extra taxes for over the long term for all the citizens who gave up their blankets and now need help? They're not, you know, they need warm in the wintertime. Like, who do you think pays for all these, you know, for these people to recover? Like you do, the non-gambler. You pay for all this, you know? So that's what this is. This is what it's. This is a huge con. This is the essence of the big con. But there's some other specific things here to Amherst that also relate to the big con, kind of expand it a little bit. And part of the big con that's happening here in Amherst County is this frame that a Rosie's Casino is. You see the signage. This is pari-mutuel racing. Like, that's what you're legalizing. Pari-mutuel racing. I'm just legalizing horse racing. You know, that's how they frame it. So think about it. So just as when a business is dishonest, when a business is perpetuating fraud, the people that stand to benefit from it will talk about it dishonestly. Okay? So these games, if you sit down in front of a slot machine, I mean, if you sit down in front of a so-called instant racing machine or a historical racing machine, your experience is just like you're playing a slot machine. There's no difference. The only difference, by pari-mutuel, what that means is how the machine pays out on the inside. It's the math on the inside of the machine, okay? But the actual experience, you're legalizing a mini casino here in your community. That's what this vote is. So the idea that they keep describing this as pari-mutuel is because they're trying to make it less toxic. If this is such a great thing for your town, Why not call it what it is? We're legalizing casino slot machines. And the reason why they don't call it that is because they know it's a harmful business. They know they can't get it passed that way. So they have to misrepresent it. Okay? It's part of the big con. All right? And another part of this big con that's happening here in Amherst County, and I've seen all the news clips up to this point, and I think much of the media, I think, does it intentionally, because a lot of times they're just reading off a press release or something. But the PR team for Colonial Downs, they keep describing them like they're a Richmond-based company. That's it. They're a Richmond-based company. No, they're not. Colonial Downs, which is the player, which is the owner behind, the entity behind Rosie's Casinos, Colonial Downs is owned by two major private equity firms that are out of state. One is based in Los Angeles, okay, and they have an office in Idaho. Okay, it's called Peninsula Pacific, and the other one, okay, is the other name of the other company is called Revolutionary Racing, and they're headquartered in Chicago. So all this money that your fellow townspeople are going to lose. And like most of that money, that's not going to Richmond base. That's going out of state. That's just sucking your region dry. So that's part of the con here. Okay? So it's time, respectfully, the media, this is going out of state. This is an out of state financial interest that's trying to rip off your community. But this last con that's happening. This is true not just here in Amherst County, but this is true everywhere. But this is, to me, the most revealing part of the con that is commercialized gambling. But it's also my favorite one to talk about because it really just emphasizes it, nails it home. And that is, what the most revealing truth is the people who run the casinos, the people that make the slot machines, most of the public officials who stand up and lobby for casinos and slot machines and all these forms of extreme gambling, you know what? They're just like that slot maker and those slot makers in Nevada. They don't gamble. Okay? They don't gamble because it's a form of fraud. It's a con. They know they're going to lose their money. Okay? So they don't gamble themselves, but they lobby. It's great for your family, Gene. It's great for your family, Toby. It's great for your kid to grow up around this, but you know what? If I'm a casino operator, I have a 529 college fund for my kids. I have an emergency financial fund in case there's a crisis. I own a house. I have retirement funds. Half the country doesn't have any of those things, and so they target communities and they target demographics that have none of that stuff, and they say, you know what your answer is? Go play the slot machines. So these casino operators, these public officials, they don't, most of them, to a person, don't gamble. And we call it the Hypocrite Hall of Fame. And so I urge you to go to our website at Stop Predatory Gambling, and right there on the homepage, we have a post that you'll see. It's called the Hypocrite Hall of Fame. And over the last 15 years, we have quotes from countless governors, state legislators, casino executives, slot machine makers, local officials who lobby for casinos, stand up and try to do everything they can to ram them into their communities, but they don't gamble. The Hypocrite Hall of Fame. And so if that doesn't, name another product where the people that own it and promote it don't use it. I ate at lunch today at the Silver Pig. The gentleman owns the Silver Pig. He eats the food he serves. Okay, he eats it. All right? These guys don't gamble. So how many times have you, if you see your local officials here in Amherst County, ask them how many times have they physically sat in front of these electronic gambling machines that they're bringing into this community? How many times have they actually physically played these and looked at them and studied them? Ask them how much of their own money they're going to gamble away on these machines. And I'd love to know, what do these Amherst County officials think when they learn that these electronic gambling machine designers, okay, like that IGT slot machine maker said in the New York Times, when they say slots are for losers, electronic gambling machines are for losers, like what are these, how do you react to that if you're an Amherst County prefect? Why would you want these machines in your community, the people you represent? These losers are members of your own community. They're members of your own family. So that's why, to sum up, your local officials here are being driven by greed. They're being driven by greed rather than love for the people they're elected to serve. And that needs to change. And you can change that. So that leads me to the second truth that I want to share with you tonight. Why supporting casinos like Rosie's is an act of greed. Is casinos like Rosie's dramatically hurt citizens financially. Okay? They dramatically hurt people financially, making the very problem that your local officials say they're trying to solve, in terms of trying to find employment, the very problem they're trying to solve, it's making it worse. It's making it worse. So the Dave Ramsey show, which many of you have heard of, Dave Ramsey is a national figure and personal finance expert, and taught probably millions of people how to manage their financial lives for the better. It's one of the most downloaded podcasts in Virginia and in the country. Okay, one of the most downloaded podcasts in Virginia and in the country. And why is that? It's because millions of people are broke. They're financially broke. All right? So let's get some context for the personal finances of people here in Virginia and here in Amherst County. So right here in Virginia, more than 5.3 million citizens, in a figure of sense, are broke. Okay? By every stretch, by every measure, pretty much, they're broke. 2 out of 5 Virginians, and this comes from GoBankingRates.com, which does surveys on people's financial status. Okay? 2 out of 5 Virginians, which is 40%, have $0 in savings. And almost 2 out of 3 citizens, okay, which 65%, have less than $1,000 in their savings. Okay? 2 out of 3, less than $1,000 in savings. And according to the most recent facts from the U.S. Census Bureau, the Amherst County poverty rate is 12%. Right? So while all that financial distress is happening, Virginians are suffering life-changing losses of personal wealth already to commercialized gambling. And the sheer size and scope of these financial losses, they lack any comparison to anything else that's happening in this state. So Virginia citizens have lost more than, and this is right from the Virginia Lottery website, Virginia citizens have lost more than $15 billion of their personal wealth to the Virginia Lottery in the last 25 years. Okay? $15 billion of personal wealth to the Virginia Lottery. Virginians lose $1,600 every minute in personal wealth to the lottery. So every minute that we're here tonight, another $1,600 has been lost by your fellow citizens. So, and to put that in context, that's not including the new casinos that are coming in. So those are the kind of financial losses that are already happening. Meanwhile, the out-of-state financial interests behind the Rosie's Casino that's proposed for Amherst County, their website says says Amherst County is going to receive $800,000 of the total gambling losses that happen here in this county. So they're going to get a slice of $800,000. That's what they're going to get, $800,000, supposedly. Okay. So the question I ask, and you should be asking every public official in this region and every media member, every one of your neighbors, like, how much, in order for the county government to get $800,000, how much of personal wealth do the people of Amherst County have to lose to get that $800,000? How much? That's the million-dollar question. So I don't know if anyone Gene, you know the answer to this question, so you can't answer, but who wants to take a guess how much money people have to lose every year to get that for the county to get $800,000? Any guesses? What's that? $5 million. As one. Next, anyone else? The county would have to raise the property tax by 3 cents. 3 cents. The property. Anyone else want to take a stab? How much money? All right. Okay. So the people of Amherst County. Okay, and this is by looking at other how Rosie's have operated in other jurisdictions. Because I actually went out right on your county's economic development site. I did all these searches on the website for the casino lobbying campaign. But they don't actually talk about how much money people have to lose. There's not any data on that. Okay, and not surprisingly, but the amount of money that the people of Amherst County have to lose every year of personal wealth out of your economy is $32 million to get $800,000, okay, for your county. $32 million of personal wealth has to be lost, okay? And that's happening in a county, in a state where 40% of citizens, 2 out of 5, have zero in savings, okay? And 2 out of 3 have less than $1,000 in savings. And your county government is going to put in a government, essentially what is an extension of a government program to get your neighbors, your coworkers, to lose $32 million every year so the county can get $800,000. You know, so you're losing, they're trying to save a penny to lose $1. That's what's happening. It's an incredible ripoff. It's an incredible ripoff. And to use kind of some Dave Ramsey speak, I mean, we all know this. The path to wealth, in our country and here locally or in our country, it's not just about how much money you make, because that's the side of the ledger that always gets the attention. Like, we got to raise the minimum wage. We got to get people making more money, and that's certainly a part of the equation. But the other key part of the equation is how much you keep, right? How much do you keep? Building assets and the accumulating and investing of savings, like those are the keys to financial peace. Owning a home, a college fund, retirement accounts, a stock portfolio, those are the hallmarks of middle class and upper class life in America. And these assets are all the results of savings. The casino operators in their private lives, they have all those assets. They have all that stuff. But the people losing that $32 million, most of them, they don't have any of those things. Okay? So the creation of wealth by the accumulation of assets and the investment of savings, that's a direct opposite of what local casinos like Rosie's Casino will represent and encourage. So no single policy reform in the state of Virginia or in our country would create more financial peace for low-income and middle-income families than rolling back significantly the current scheme of turning millions of Virginians who are small earners into habitual bettors. Okay? It's time to stop that bet. It's time to roll back. Stop turning small earners into habitual bettors. So now I'll turn to the third and final truth that I'm going to share with you tonight about why supporting the Rosie's Casino is an act of greed. Is that casinos like Rosie's are a naked money grab disguised as economic development. So it needs to be restated that what separates commercialized gambling from every other business, including other vices like alcohol and tobacco, is it's a big con game. It's based on financial fraud and exploitation. It's a form of fraud. Okay, so that's what makes this business different. So any activity that your county and state government puts money into would stimulate the economy. You could pick any industry that your county wanted to focus on or your state government wanted to focus on, and it would help stimulate your economy. Okay? They could focus on something good that improves people's lives. Okay, things that help people build wealth. So the economic impact of casino gambling games like slot machines, it's similar to whipping out a $50 bill and throwing it into the street out there and then going out and paying somebody to pick it up. Okay? It's redistributing wealth without creating it. Okay? It's redistributing wealth without creating it. Okay, so just think of that analogy. It's throwing your money into the street and then paying somebody a minimum wage to go out and pick up that money. Okay? Like the blanket company. It's a huge fraud. But so relying on slot machines and other forms of gambling as its primary revenue source, a casino might employ some citizens, but it doesn't produce economic growth. Right? It doesn't produce economic growth. Success in a casino only comes at someone else's expense. If I'm working at a local restaurant, no one else has to suffer in order for me to make a paycheck. But when you're working at Rosie's, like your neighbors, your family members, like people have to pay the price. People have to lose and suffer financial distress in order for you to get a paycheck, and a small paycheck at that, you know. So the big money lobbying campaign that you're seeing taking place here in Amherst County by the out-of-state financial interests behind the Rosie's Casino, it continually attempts to focus, you know, the proposal as a chance for free money to the government, right? $800,000 for the county, you know, for schools and road construction, or you name it. You know, and the reason why the casinos like to focus on, what other business comes in and say, bring us in and like, we're gonna pay you money. We want to give you this money, right? What other business does that? Every other business is trying to lower their taxes or whatever it may be, you know, because they're trying to make the profits work. In this business, because it's a form of fraud, they're trying to say, hey, we'll give you a cut of the action. We'll give you a cut of all these losses. So they always focus on the amount that the county is going to get or the local community is going to get. And the reason for that is because the business model, okay, it's based upon, you know, causing a serious public health problem in your area, because the amount of addicted citizens that local casinos like Rosie's leave in their wake. All right. So, and this is you know, this is like over the last like 20 years. There's like, you know, more than 15 studies that show this. You know, and the studies that the gambling industry they always point to industries that they fund. So the industry funded studies. All the facts done by regular public health folks show that more than half the profits in slot machines come from people who are addicted to gambling. The business model is based on the addicted player. Okay, the casual player that goes to a casino once a year or twice a year, they are irrelevant to the business model. Totally irrelevant. Okay, it's the out of control play. It's the person not going once a year. They want the people, by having a local casino, the end game for Rosie's is to have people going 3 to 4 to 5 times a week. Okay, right after work, bang, right in there. You know, instead of going to visit their family, they're going to the casino. Okay, that's how this business model works. Day after day after day, again, the same people coming in. Okay, the business model is based on addicted gamblers, and the track record from other states, it shows, you know, when they have casinos, the casinos in your community, they leave far behind more gambling addicts than they do jobs. All right? I want to say there's a number, like they say there's going to have 100 jobs or something with this Rosie's Casino, like part-time and full-time jobs. Is that accurate? I mean, you're going to create like 100 times more addicts by having a Rosie's in your community than the people that work there. I mean, how perverse is that? You know, and we don't need to speculate that. Like the state of Illinois, which has embraced predatory gambling as a revenue source as much as any state in the country, and sadly, over the last 5 years, Virginia has directly turned in that direction. I mean, over the last 5 years, this state has now become one of the biggest predatory gambling states in the country. Like there's online gambling, you got casinos coming in, you got these Rosie's mini casinos everywhere. Like you got to see a transformation in your culture that you have not seen here before. And you don't need to speculate what your future looks like, because all you need to look at is Illinois. So, and I love to cite this stat. We actually use the statistics so much that the Illinois Gambling Board stopped posting this data, okay, because it was so embarrassing to the state. But I'm going to share it with you anyways, because it's just so revealing. So because the casinos put the onus on you, the gambler. If you have a problem with gambling, they don't say, hey, you know, Gene, you've been here for 7 straight days, you've lost 10 grand, you know, over the last, 3 or 4 weeks, you know, you have a problem. They don't step in and say that. No one, they don't do it. They put the onus on you all to say, hey, you know, you have to come in and put yourself on a list. Okay, it gives the appearance that it's a consumer protection. But as I said earlier, the business model is based on the addicted gambler. Okay, so they call this consumer protection self-exclusion. So you, the addict, have to come forward and put yourself on a list, okay, to get yourself banned from the casino. The very definition of being an addict means you don't have free will, right? You're addicted, okay? So they say you have to have the free will somehow to put yourself on a list to ban yourself from the casino. Okay, so anyway, so they call this self-exclusion. Very few addicted gamblers ever put themselves on a self-exclusion list, and that's what makes this stat I'm about to share with you even more damning, okay? Because there's only like 95% of addicted gamblers never even put themselves on the list. So nonetheless, and these are numbers that have been made by the Illinois Gambling Board, that in the state's self-exclusion program, there are at least 12,000 people who have put themselves on the state self-exclusion list, who've literally come forward, addicts who've come forward and said, this has ruined my life, ban me from the state's casinos. Okay, 12,000 folks. And that's just a sliver of the people who are actually addicted. Meanwhile, the state of Illinois has like 10 casinos across the state. And if you add up all the full-time and part-time jobs at those casinos, there's roughly 7,000 jobs at those places, full-time and part-time jobs. There's 12,000 people that put themselves on the self-exclusion list, which means there's probably like 100,000, easily over 100,000 people addicted to the casinos in Illinois for 7,000 jobs. What a trade-off that is. Like, that is, talk about a deal with the devil. That's about as bad as it gets. I mean, and so why would someone, we believe in jobs with justice, jobs with fairness, jobs with love. Like, anyone who has a work at one of these places, like, you're coming at the price of human suffering, okay? So the last thought I'm going to share with you tonight is this. And that's because we're meeting in a church. So it's important for all of us, to consider how this Rosie's Casino project relates to our values and our beliefs. So regardless of the faith group that you belong to, or if you're someone who doesn't practice a religion, this casino proposal, it reveals a lot about what you truly believe in. Do you really believe that all people are made in God's image? Like, do you really believe that in your core? Because if you do, this casino project directly contradicts that belief, because it considers thousands of Amherst County citizens as less than human, because it's by financially exploiting them and grooming them to become addicted to gambling. They're considered expendable. Do you really believe in trying to love other people with the same kind of selfless love that God loves us with? Like, do you really believe? Is that something you're really trying to do in your daily life? Because if that's true, if you really are trying to do that, and I think most people try to do that. I think are aspiring to do that. They're working towards that. If you really believe it, then this casino directly contradicts this belief, because it's a money-making scheme based on committing financial fraud against your neighbor, taking profit and pleasure in another person's failure and distress. And this is one that means a lot to me personally, because growing up, I never really understood what this phrase meant. So I'll say this. Do you really believe that you are meant to be the salt of the earth? Do you really mean that? Do you really believe that? And for me, I understood, it wasn't until the last 15 years when I really understood, over the course of this work, I really connected what it means to put your faith into action. So I get it now, what it means to be the salt of the earth. And I define it as to live with virtue and goodness. So do you really believe that? That you're meant to be that way? Do you really believe that you're supposed to be the light of the world? Because then if you do, then this casino proposal, this represents an opportunity for you to be a salt shaker and a lamplighter. So I hope I've explained to you why I'm passionate about this issue. Hopefully you understand why I feel so passionate about this issue. But I hope I've explained to you why this struggle here in Amherst County is a conflict between love and greed. A vote yes for a Rosie's Casino is an act of greed. A vote no against a Rosie's Casino is an act of love. And voting no is an act of love for your neighbor. Voting no is an act of love for your family. Voting no is an act of love for your community here in Amherst County. So my urgent ask of you is to go out and put love into action over these next 4 weeks by donating your money as generously as you can to this local fight, investing your time in this fight, and beat back this effort to expand greed in Amherst County. You can win this if you do the work. So, thank you very much.